This is the Awkward GM Corbin, and today I'm going to be discussing the cons of being a mage in Mage the Awakening. Please leave in the comments below what you think my next Patreon goal should be when I hit $30 a month. Shout out to our patrons for supporting the channel. Usually I'd be doing this in the character creation videos, but since Mage is very complex, I want to give it its own video, and the pros video is going to come out next. First up, we have the limitations placed on Arcana. When you're purchasing Arcana over the Arcana limit by Gnosis, it costs 1 XP extra. Your Gnosis, if you increase it, also increases your Paradox dice pool. For Wisdom, we have the Act of Hubris / Obsession. Fulfilling an obsession via an act of hubris subtracts 1 die from the act of hubris roll. If it's in line with your vice, it subtracts another die from the act of hubris roll. You can raise your wisdom, but you must spend 1 story with the obsession Become Wiser before you're allowed to purchase wisdom. Your long-term Nimbus causes supernatural events that align with your path to occur to people who are connected to you, depending on your wisdom level. Gnosis determines how obvious the magic is. Signature Nimbus is also the evidence that you casted a spell. So if you cast a spell and someone uses Mage Sight around where it was cast, or on the person or object it was casted on, they'll be able to identify you if they come across you. It is incredibly difficult to lie in high speech, therefore it reduces expression and subterfuge rolls via high speech to a chance die. Peripheral Mage Sight cannot be used to detect hidden or warded active spell effects. Active Mage Sight has a -2 penalty to perception rolls that are not related to magic. Scrutinizing for more turns than your unmodified Gnosis plus Mage Sight Arcana minus every additional active Mage Sight Arcana being used causes a penalty of half the user's Gnosis, rounded up, to be added to the mystery's opacity. If you get a dramatic failure on a revelation roll, which only happens if the player chooses to upgrade a failure to a dramatic failure, or if they roll a 1 on a chance die as part of the roll, they overload the mystery or subject with mana, which causes it to be impossible to scrutinize the mystery for 24 hours. When summoning, you need more successes for certain criteria. For instance, you add 1 success required per mage of a different path present during the ritual. You have to get 1 more success required per sleeper present. 1 more success required if taking place in a demoncy oriented to a realm other than the one in question. Add 1 success if a mage caused a paradox, even contained within the last week. There is also the possibility of abyssal intrusion. When summoning, the caster could accidentally summon an abyssal entity with an abyssal intrusion. This happens after a number of rolls equal to the resolve plus composure plus any successes allocated to avoid abyssal intrusion turns. After that point, the storyteller rolls the character's unmodified Gnosis every roll after, so they're overextending themselves. If successes equal the mage's Gnosis plus primary arcanum in summoning, an abyssal entity is summoned instead of a supernal one. Soul Stones. Creating a Soul Stone reduces the maximum amount of Gnosis you can have by 1. So 1 Soul Stone means you can only have a Gnosis of 9 maximum. Having 5 means you can only have a Gnosis 5 maximum. It is also considered an act of hubris for the enlightened and understanding wisdom mages. Dissonance is when sleepers witness supernal magic. It can cause a spell to weaken, hurt supernal entities, or suppress demence. Here's some limitations on spellcasting. If a spell is both a praxis and a rote, you have to choose which effect you're going to use. You can't use them both. When casting a rote from a grimoire, you cannot cast instantly, and it doubles the ritual casting time. If a target's withstand stat reduces potency down to 0, the spell is considered active, but has no effect. Aim spells are spells that are thrown at range. Normally they provoke paradox because the magical effect is visible. They require rolling an attack roll against the target in addition to casting the spell. So you have to cast your Gnosis plus higher of athletics or firearms minus the target's defense, unless you have fast spells merit, which makes it behave like firearm attacks, ignoring defense. Aim spells don't ignore cover and concealment. However, you can spend one reach and just cast a spell at sensory range. Also, some spells, like fate spells at sensory range, don't provoke paradoxes because their effects aren't always clearly magical. Paradox is the big negative for being a mage. It only occurs if a spell or spell effect is visibly magical, as reality begins to try and fight against it. Whenever one die is added to your paradox pool, you have to roll your paradox pool, even if you use mana to reduce it down to a chance die. Each reach over the limit dictated by your spell's Arcana rating adds your Gnosis rating's paradox dice per reach. +2 if the spell is inured against wisdom loss. A cumulative +1 for each paradox roll after the first that was made for the same caster within the same scene. +1 for one or more sleeper witnesses. Fewer sleeper witnesses makes the roll have a 9 again quality, large groups makes it a 8 again quality roll, and a full crowd grants the rote quality. If you decide to release the paradox, if the paradox dice pool is successful, the paradox causes the following: a dice penalty to spellcasting rolls equal to this roll's successes, causing spells to generate more paradox, and dramatic failures impose the paradox condition on casters. Each success can be used to apply additional reaches to the spell as the spell falls out of the caster's control, which includes abyssal taint and summoning an abyssal entity, as well as the normal effects of reach. And depending on the caster's wisdom determines the length of the abyssal taint. Also, if it's a dramatic failure, that means that the paradox also causes a paradox condition. Containing a paradox is a lot safer but still harmful to the mage. Instead, you roll your wisdom dots as a dice pool. Each success removes one success from your paradox roll. Each paradox success still remaining deals one resistant bashing damage to the mage. If the paradox roll still succeeds, the user gains a paradox condition at a severity depending on the number of successes on the paradox roll. To get rid of paradox conditions, you either let it resolve, you scour it, or let it lapse, which is duration dependent based on your wisdom level, in order to gain an arcane beat. Lapse conditions become part of the mage's pattern and must be scoured out. This pattern scouring does not produce mana and causes one lethal to the mage. Spells with the same effect do not stack, so for instance, if one spell gives you armor 5 and another spell gives you armor 4, you just have armor 5, you don't get armor +9 or whatever. Also, your yantra bonus that you get when spellcasting cannot exceed 5. Here are some limitations that are on the creative thaumaturgy. For Initiate 1, compelling spells cannot make behavior that is physically impossible, and they cannot create conditions out of nothing, but they can strengthen conditions or weaken them. I was unable to find any limitations stated for knowing and unveiling spells. For 2-dot apprentice spells, ruling spells can make impossible actions possible, but cannot fundamentally change reality. So you can make a coin flip onto its side, but you cannot turn that coin into a chicken. Shielding spells can protect against supernatural attacks equal to the spell potency, but such attacks provoke clash of wills. Veiling spells cannot veil against abstract ideas like the concept of time and death, so you cannot prevent yourself from dying from time magic with veiling spells. At 3 dots, fraying spells are limited to bashing damage or weakening targets. Perfection spells, so far I haven't found a limitation stated. Weaving spells cannot transform something into a completely different object. At the 4-dot adept spells, patterning does not seem to have any additional limitations stated. Unraveling, however, you must spend 1 mana and 1 reach to upgrade lethal damage to aggravated. I will note here that it seems like the Mind Rote spell that causes lethal damage has an increased amount of resources needed to cause it to become aggravated. I am not sure if this factors into creative thaumaturgy though. At the 5-dot master level spells, unmaking and making spells do not seem to have a limitation. However, I will state that there are imperial magics that go from the 6 to 10 dot rating that aren't covered in this book and are equivalent to godlike powers. By the core rules, imperial magics aren't supposed to be for player use. However, if you want, there's a supplement somewhere. I'm not sure which one. If you know which one, please put it in the comments below and I might pin it. Conditions. Magically given helpful conditions do not grant beats unless an exceptional success happens. If a negative condition is resolved prior to the duration ending, the target gains a beat and ends the spell early. Spells can increase a trait beyond the target's natural maximum at the cost of a point of mana up to the target's potency, or 5, whichever is lower. Trait dots only last for the spell's duration and aren't covered by the Sanctity of Merits. Spells cannot affect the power stat or rank of any supernatural creature, such as blood potency for vampires or rank for ghosts, nor supernatural abilities like renown. Did I miss any weaknesses? Let me know in the comments below, and here's a video that's about mages.